Under a crescent moon, a suited man bolted down the alley. He ducked behind a wall, certain he had lost whatever had been chasing him, but distant footsteps thudded closer. From the shadows emerged a girl radiating glittering energy. Across the city, a wild-eyed addict dug through trash, lips foaming from his obsession with a twisted substance known as candy. Madness took root easily soon. The nation spiraled into chaos. Despite global scrutiny, scientists failed to uncover anything unusual about candy's ingredients, just sugar and common additives. Still, no one could explain its terrifying potency, which dwarfed even heroin and fentanyl, leaving bodies in its wake. Akira Susui, a high-ranking member of the Jinsei clan, demanded answers about their massive financial losses. His subordinates pleaded for understanding, citing chaos on the streets and competition from foreign syndicates. Oz addicts writhed on floors, smaller dealers clung to survival. Akira seized a subordinate by the collar, his eyes sharp with menace, as he questioned the man's disrespect. Caught off guard, the dealer stammered out a panicked denial. Without hesitation, Akira hurled him across the room, sending him crashing into the floor with a brutal slam. Smoke curled from Akira's lips as he calmly asked if his message had landed, terrifying those watching. Rumors whispered of his heritage, a hybrid of Japanese ferocity and South American blood unmatched in raw power. With a smirk, Akira reminded the others they were just as accountable. Smoke lingered in the ruined room as he sat calmly, the aftermath of his rage sprawled at his feet. He muttered about missed quotas, casually tapping the body as if it were just another obstacle. Faced with dwindling options, he considered new moves, perhaps a fresh operation, or shaking down rivals. A sudden call interrupted his thoughts. Upon hearing the name Susi, his relaxed expression turned sharply serious. Solemn ceremony was held for Masatake Fuyugiri, marking the loss of a key figure in the clan's hierarchy. Mourners recited Buddhist prayers in unison, their expressions stern as tradition filled the air. Akira stood silent among them, eyes shadowed with restrained emotion, as he paid his respects. Over drinks and food, whispers rose too many Yakuza had died recently. Even within the Jinsei clan, speculation grew around the cause foreign mafias, escalating wars. Other clan leaders scoffed at the Fuyugiri's loss, mocking the low funeral turnout and dismissing Masatake's death as unimportant. Akira stood up with quiet determination, holding a bottle with solemn intent. He pledged vengeance before all present, swearing on the crest of the Jinsei clan itself. His eyes burned with resolve, promising to do whatever was necessary to honor his fallen boss. Insults followed, racial slurs and disbelief, but Akira's silence only deepened the weight of his conviction. Warnings erupted from the elders crossing the cartels could doom the entire clan in one reckless move. Unshaken, Akira declared vengeance was their only path, invoking the strength of the Jinsei clan with fierce resolve. Before tempers boiled over, a hand gripped his shoulder, halting the outburst with calm authority. Gozo Kashiwa, second in command, labeled Akira's glare as wild feral, like a mad dog cornered. Bowing in apology, the senior members begged forgiveness for Akira's reckless defiance. Tensions escalated as a superior lashed out, demanding discipline for the Latino brat before the Fuyugiri name was ruined. Kashiwagi, stoic, as ever, offered a quiet apology while hiding his inner disdain. Later, inside the car, Susui questioned the need for submission to men he clearly despised. His captain answered bluntly, spinelessness had become the norm among modern Yakuza. The institution had lost its edge, neutered by law and bureaucracy, reduced to shadows of its former self. Kashiwagi explained that everything had changed since candy hit the streets. It had revived their power. A miracle drug, undetectable and worth a fortune, was reshaping the criminal underworld like nothing before. The Jinsei clan had begun stockpiling weapons from overseas suppliers. Their younger recruits were even being shipped off to war zones, to gain real combat experience unnoticed. All of it served one purpose, to win the coming narco war and seize full control of Candy's empire. The fallen head of the Fuyugiri family was deemed unfit for the brutal future ahead. Eyes fixed and unblinking, Susi listened, as suspicions rose, but the real question was about his own resolve. Accepting the truth in silence, he nodded, signaling his readiness for what was to come. As the car sped forward, so did his purpose, cold, unshaken, and absolute. By nightfall, he walked alone through neon-lit alleys, fully prepared to embrace his warpath. Susui entered a quiet shop and headed down the dim staircase, only to bump into a startled schoolgirl. She fell flustered and confused, while he questioned why someone her age was even in a place like that. Without explanation, the girl bolted, leaving him bewildered in the aisle. The shopkeeper greeted him nervously, but he brushed it off, with indifference. Lighting a cigarette, he casually asked if Yajima had shown up yet. Outside the store, the girl licked her candy thoughtfully, impressed by the man she'd just run into. With a smile, she confirmed her suspicion she had finally located Akira Susui. Meanwhile, Susui visited Taisuke Yajima, chief of the Narcotics Control Department, who greeted him with ease. Irritated, Susui lashed out over Yajima's loose talk, furious at the risk it posed. He reminded him grimly if his cover broke, he'd be dead and gutted before anyone blinked. Susui warned Yajima not to overstep threatening blackmail charges if the store got compromised. With a pistol to his face, he made it clear that any recklessness would lead to bloody consequences. Yajima laughed nervously, reminding Susui who technically outranked him. Frustrated, Susui revealed his true identity: an undercover narcotics agent for the Ministry of Health. Once a street delinquent, he had been scouted to infiltrate the Jinsei clan from the inside. Admitted Susui's violent past made him the perfect cover. No one would ever suspect a narc. Susui laid it out. Clearly the Jinsei clan was expanding underground, far beyond what police records suggested. He confirmed he wasn't joking, something big was in motion, and it wasn't subtle. The clan planned a direct deal with Candy's manufacturer, bypassing middlemen entirely. To Yajima's horror, Susui revealed the supplier Central and South American drug cartels. Susui warned that provoking the cartels could ignite a full-scale drug war. Still, he viewed it as their best chance to infiltrate Candy's origin point. Despite Yajima's warning, Susui confirmed he'd join the deal. Fear was no longer part of him. He stepped out with calm certainty, revealing the meeting would take place in 1 week. Alone in his car, he focused on the mission: identify the creators of the world's deadliest narcotic. 2 investigators reviewed the truth about the manufacturer, facts obscured by fear and silence. They confirmed 2 things. The drug had spread worldwide, and the source was still relentlessly producing devastation without pause. Driven by resolve, Susui prepared to eliminate those responsible for the candy epidemic, seeing them as a plague. Their convoy arrived at a remote building suspected to house the operation. Inside, armed men advanced cautiously, led by Susui, ready for confrontation. Susui was asked about fate, a word that made him pause in thought. To him, fate resembled gum stuck underfoot, annoying and impossible to shake off no matter how hard one tried. He dissected a child's tragic background, revealing parents lost to addiction, and a life born out of despair. The mother's collapse into madness ended in a horrific tragedy that wiped out the family. Reflecting on the boy's hardships, the man acknowledged a brutal life, abandoned at just 14. Susui stood among the group, surprised by the sudden shift in conversation as they reflected on the past. A gun was raised, and a grim voice finally revealed the reason behind the hatred toward the drug candy. Without warning, a bullet tore through Susui's shoulder, shocking everyone struggling to breathe. He was condemned as a traitor in front of the others. The truth emerged: there was never a deal, it had all been a setup for his execution. Susui staggered forward, bloodied and fading, while his enemies mocked his doomed fate, despite the pain. He questioned when they saw through him, and the answer came coldly since the beginning. A new figure appeared: Yajima, grinning behind a lollipop, his presence causing visible dread. Mockery turned cruel as Yajima revealed he had no more use for Susui, crushing any chance of survival. Twisted by delusion, Yajima declared Susui's execution, the only fitting end for someone they could never corrupt. Mocking laughter echoed across the room as Susui stood cornered, surrounded by enemies with no escape. One of them revealed his betrayal, admitting he had been leaking information and profiting from candy distribution. A gun pressed to Susui's head. The traitor declared his intent to present Susui's death to the clan leadership. To him, killing Susui was a career move, an offering to climb the underworld ladder. But Susui, bloodied yet defiant, stared back with a smirk, hiding something beneath the surface. In a sudden move, Susui seized the gun aimed at him. Surprising everyone with unexpected strength, he stepped forward, forcing his enemy to stagger, unwilling to lurk in shadows any longer. With a steady aim and smirk, he made clear he'd never bow to drug lords. Enemies scrambled to react as chaos unfolded and a grenade was threatened. Gunfire erupted. Susui used one man as cover, striking back amidst the crossfire. Susui moved with precision, using a hostage to drop one enemy before spinning to strike again. Gunfire lit the air as more henchmen tried to bring him down, grazing his shoulder. Unfazed, he counterattacked with brutal force, sending bodies flying with a single strike. Fists collided, another thug dropped, while one froze in fear. Whispering monster surrounded. Susie acknowledged the odds, preparing for what came next. From behind the smoke, a furious voice shouted, calling out the true villain among them. Yajima panicked, realizing too late he had become the target. Susie launched forward with full force, landing a devastating kick that shattered the man's face. Yajima collapsed unconscious, while Susie landed with a thud, still tense. With a cigarette between his fingers, he smirked, knowing he'd done just enough to settle the score. Susui muttered through clenched teeth, cigarette still between his lips. Recalling what he had always known, a disturbing memory surfaced. A woman, desperate and broken, blamed her choices on her craving for candy. In her despair, she reached for a knife, too afraid to die alone, her child begging her to stop. Jerking awake, Susie gasped for air, the trauma still fresh. Before him stood the men who dragged him back cold, waiting, and armed with questions. Susie writhed in pain, bound to a chair and pierced with nails, as agony shot through his limbs. Mocking laughter filled the room. His captors took sick pleasure in his repeated awakenings. One of them promised to turn his broken body into a public warning against resistance. Visions of a drug-fueled dystopia flashed before Susui's eyes, an empire of fear modeled. After Mexico's chaos, staring up in disbelief, he questioned if this hellish place would be where his story ends. A familiar girl appeared unexpectedly, recognizing Susie from an earlier encounter, and greeting him with calm curiosity. With a cheerful pose, she introduced herself as Riri Hoshina, a magical girl, no less. The room erupted in alarm, but Riri only smiled, keeping her sender a secret. Bullets flew, but she stood still, untouched, as if reality bent around her. With a flick of her wand, she casually scolded them for being reckless, then froze time mid-barrage. Riri turned confidently to the chaos, offering to reveal the truth behind the infamous candy. She explained, it was just normal candy, infused with magical girl energy. What made it lethal wasn't the ingredients, but the way it shattered minds when consumed by ordinary people. As Susie watched, Riri pointed her wand at him and cast a glowing spell. His wounds faded, the magic rewound his body, returning it to a healed state from before the torture. Riri beamed with pride, explaining her magic as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Still reeling from the recovery, could hardly process her bubbly confidence. Without hesitation, she proposed a deal: his life in exchange for his cooperation. Before he could answer, their captor returned, threatening to tear them apart. Annoyed by the interruption, Riri reminded everyone they were in the middle of serious negotiations. Riri raised her wand with a sharp glare, warning that interfering came with a cost. A surge of magical energy pulsed out, enveloping the room in shimmering symbols. Confusion swept over the armed men as Riri whispered her final word. Boom! In a flash, the attackers were torn apart mid-air, blood painting the walls. With a sweet smile, she revealed the truth: she'd rewound the entire room, unleashing past gunfire onto the present. Riri casually spun on her heel, as if the carnage behind her was nothing more than background noise. With a cheerful grin, she extended an invitation: join her in hunting the one who created candy. Though stunned, Susie knew he had no real choice. Rejecting her meant death. She teased him relentlessly, making it clear he was already under her magical terms. Resigned yet determined, he stood up ready to follow her, dream or not. Susie agreed to the alliance, realizing their objectives matched perfectly despite her strange, magical origins. Shohei, a Kayanagi, head of a third-tier family, mocks the failed plot against the Jinsei clan. Pleased by the recent turn of events, he praises Susie and offers him protection, claiming he'll guide him personally. He dismisses formalities, demanding results over words, and expresses expectations for Susui's future contributions. Susu, the undercover agent, remains puzzled. Despite his identity, no one seems suspicious. He begins to understand internal betrayal had concealed his role. A young girl calmly reveals that Kashiwagi deliberately hid crucial intel to steal the spotlight for himself. Caught off guard by her sudden appearance and the implications behind her words, his reaction turns to frustration as he questions her presence, while she casually teases him with playful innocence. Meanwhile, Shohei notices the disruption and asks if something is amiss, his tone firm yet indifferent. Suppressing his emotions, Susie regains composure, blaming his unease on momentary nerves rather than exposing the truth. Akira Susui kneels before the Akayanagi family, swearing loyalty under pressure. Though his mind races with doubt, inside the car, he fumes in silence while Riri sits beside him, unbothered and cheerful. His confusion deepens as he wonders why Yajima hasn't exposed him. Riri reveals she magically disabled Yajima, rendering him incoherent and permanently silenced. Susie stares in disbelief, unable to understand the unpredictable and unnerving girl beside him. Learns that Akayanagi may secretly lead a powerful private army, possibly linked to Candy's source. He reflects on the narcotic's deadly nature, acknowledging that both he and Riri are chasing its creators. Confused by the term magical girls, he mocks the concept, thinking it belongs in fiction, not reality. Amused and grateful for breakfast, offers to clarify the truth behind her strange identity. With a faint smile, she reveals that magical girls are defenders of the world, hidden in plain sight, chosen by a being from another world. Girls were assembled to fight monsters draining Earth's energy. They waged fierce battles against monstrous threats, losing countless comrades in their long, desperate war. Riri reveals their efforts saved the planet from annihilation, urging Susie to recognize their sacrifice. Susui, unconvinced, accuses her of insanity and brushes off her dramatic claims as fantasy. Frustrated, he challenges the contradictions in her story, demanding a reason for the drug trade. Susui questions how Riri could have fought 10 years ago, considering she still looks like a child. She responds casually, claiming magical girls don't age, while Susie grows increasingly frustrated by her attitude. Despite his doubts, he admits she possesses strange abilities that can't be easily dismissed. Shaking off his irritation, he focuses on their next task, wondering how he's still unharmed. Nearby, drug dealers, loiter, and Riri reminds him their mission targets, Yakuza, not street addicts. Susui checks his phone, explaining he needs to eliminate unauthorized dealers invading Akayanagi territory. He shows a shady online post, revealing how dealers now lure customers without Yakuza permission. Fueled by anger, he vows to crush every trafficker, while Riri responds with calm approval. Without warning, she heads out, prompting Susie to scramble after her in frustration. Riri confronts the dealers alone, casually spilling her drink as tension builds in the air. A drink splashes across a dealer's face, catching him off guard and igniting sudden confusion. The group looks around, puzzled by Riri's presence, while Susie quietly arrives at the scene. Susuhi, mistaken as the culprit, is accused before he can grasp the situation himself. Tensions flare as both sides shout, leading to a chaotic argument filled with blame. Without warning, Susie is punched in retaliation, forced into a brawl he didn't initiate. Susui grabs his attacker's wrist mid-swing, calmly stopping the strike with one hand and a firm stare. Suddenly he launches the man across the room, stunning everyone with unexpected strength and precision. While one thug tries to explain, others remain confused, unable to see the girl who started the chaos. Starts suspecting that only certain people can perceive Risri's presence at all. Realization dawns she might have been invisible to most from the beginning, deepening the mystery around her. A powerful punch knocks a thug to the ground, signaling the arrival of a new threat. Susui and the blonde brute face off, each sizing up the other with veiled menace. The brute boasts about defeating his enemies to secure dominance, mocking anyone who underestimated him. Suppressing his fury, Susui seethes internally, struggling to contain the violent urges rising within him. The thug stares, confused, as Susu mutters darkly, unaware of the storm about to erupt. Without hesitation, Susui delivers a devastating punch directly to the thug's face. Glancing at the unconscious body, he mocks the fallen man before turning to the remaining two. Something strange interrupts him. A soft glow and a rewind of time catches his attention mid-step. From a distance, Riri cheerfully reveals she used magic, declaring Susie invincible as long as she's nearby. Enraged by the manipulation, Susie lunges again, furious that someone dared tamper with his own body. The dealers finally recognize Susui, whispering rumors of his brutal past and feared reputation. Annoyed by the exaggerations, he hurls them into a wall, demanding they stop spreading lies. After the dust settles, he questions why Riri remains invisible to others, despite standing in plain sight. She shifts the topic, reminding him of a massive disaster that struck Shinjuku 10 years ago. He hesitates, then admits remembering it vaguely from the news as a child. Riri explains that the battle between magical girls and monsters caused the Shinjuku collapse, though history denies it. Despite their victory and the master's departure, the memory erasing system still persists for unknown reasons. Since society rejects their existence, magical girls remain unseen, likened to ghosts walking among the living. Even horrific acts would be rewritten as mundane accidents under the world's hidden rules. Can perceive magical girls linking visibility to magical intoxication. Riri casually adds that anyone she casts magic on can also see her without needing candy. Susie muses on how useful invisibility must be, prompting Riri to challenge that assumption. She reveals the lonely truth being unseen erases identity, relationships, and existence itself from the world. After risking everything to save humanity, magical girls were discarded, their sacrifices forgotten. Fueled by despair, they now weaponize candy to force the world to remember them. A vow is made no matter the price. The speaker is determined to stop those behind the chaos. Elsewhere, a group nervously discusses the dangerous decision to provoke the powerful Jinsei clan. Doubt spreads among the members, unsure if their ragtag gang stands any real chance of surviving. Tensions rise as one insists they simply focus on pleasing a mysterious girl involved. Their plan proceeds as the door opens, welcoming them into an uncertain and risky meeting. A severed head rolls into the room, silencing the gang members mid-sentence with shock and fear. Inside, a girl decorates a restrained corpse like a twisted canvas, too occupied to greet visitors. Seiya stares in discomfort, acknowledging her work as disturbingly creative and unhinged. Delighted by the compliment, Meru eagerly asks for a new theme while licking her candy, reveals her next assignment: kill 2 targets and turn them into her next masterpiece. Beneath the glow of Kabukicho's lights, a narrow corridor behind an indoor golf bar concealed something far from innocent. A well-dressed man showcased a powerful golf swing, drawing obedient applause from those around him. Brushing off compliments, he settled into a lounge where quiet tension filled the air. Grisly images surfaced: disassembled bodies, floating balloons, and warnings tied to a figure known only as the artist faces, stiffened as the implications sank in, even shaking the infamous Mad Dog. Riri's casual antics disrupted the tense atmosphere, drawing glares from nearby men already on edge, unfazed. She spun logic around magical rules, irritating her reluctant partner beyond reason. Meanwhile, deep inside a private lounge, a grim declaration silenced the room. The killer had gone too far. A cabaret owner recalled finding a neatly wrapped package near the dumpsters behind his club. Without hesitation, the truth emerged. Inside the box were severed heads. Severed heads, once belonging to clan members, had been grotesquely adorned with glitter and toys. Suspicion spread as reports confirmed the start of the narco war, with the artist likely hired by rival factions. Warnings intensified. Tokyo's underworld now hid a deranged assassin, unpredictable and lethal. Riri rushed into the night, determined to track down the killer and end the threat. Their mission took shape: prove loyalty, uncover leads, and dismantle the enemy's veil of silence. Suspicion turned toward a gang called Black Mamba, believed to be behind recent violence. As Riri and Susui walked, they discussed the gang's activities, selling candy on rival turf and drawing deadly attention. Approaching the club wasn't simple. Susui's notoriety could blow their cover immediately. Despite his protests, Riri insisted on taking the lead, brushing off his resistance. With wireless gear ready, she prepared to infiltrate alone, trusting him to guide her from outside. With confidence, Riri slipped past the guards, unbothered by the threat of being recognized. A booming crowd filled the club, but she advanced without hesitation toward the center. Susui's voice crackled through the earpiece as they established clear communication from the car outside. He warned her of the gang's identifying tattoos, reminding her to stay alert while scanning the room. Spotting 2 likely suspects, Riri made her move direct, bold, and ready for whatever came next. From the car, Susui panicked as Riri went off script, baffling him with her reckless behavior. Inside, the gang members taunted her, waving product and mocking her appearance. Instead of backing down, she played along with exaggerated interest, ignoring the warnings echoing in her ear. One of the men grinned, suggesting they move somewhere private. Unaware she wasn't intimidated, calm and collected, Riri reassured her partner, brushing off his concern with a smile. Riri grinned with confidence, fully prepared to extract answers from her unsuspecting targets. Back in the car, Susu fumed in silence, grinding his teeth at her defiance. His frustration boiled over, crushing a can as he cursed her recklessness. Another woman joined him in the vehicle, casually commenting while he muttered complaints about Riri's bizarre behavior. Unfazed, she teased him about the smoke-filled car, leaving him stunned and speechless. With a sugary smile, the girl bombarded Susie with innocent questions, masking her true intentions. Suddenly, a gun was drawn. Her voice darkened, revealing him as the subject of her next twisted creation. Power surged as she uttered the word need, unleashing a chaotic, destructive force within the car. Bruised and breathless, Susui barely escaped, watching in horror as the vehicle twisted into grotesque forms. Amused, the girl taunted his survival, questioning whether he was even human. Susu reeled in shock, realizing the girl attacking him was another magical entity like Hoshina. Still staggering, he confronted her identity, the infamous artist behind the gruesome killings. With a glowing wand, she cast her next spell, mocking him with a deadly command. A barrage of magical blasts forced him into a desperate retreat. Overwhelmed by their speed and force, cornered and outmatched, he made a split-second decision to flee, banking everything on one final gamble. With his arm torn and body battered, Susie broke through the magical ice, charging forward with resolve. The artist watched in disbelief, stunned that he was still standing after everything she unleashed. Amusement turned to curiosity. Was he fearless, or simply reckless? Ignoring her taunts, he lunged across the battlefield, eyes locked on his target. A sudden strike from behind interrupted her attack, catching her completely off guard. As Susie sprinted away, the artist watched, slowly realizing Hoshina's message now made sense. Reluctantly, he activated the surrounding magic field, stepping into Hoshina's range with a determined glare. The artist quickly understood the trick, confirming her opponent had magical backup. Grinning, she mocked the connection, demanding answers with feigned curiosity. In a haze of laughter and rebellion, a reckless crowd flaunted their stash. Wone dealer tried to excuse their actions, insisting it was all just business. Their bravado shattered when a lone girl intervened, swiftly taking down their leader and leaving fear in her wake. With cold clarity, she exposed the truth: they had unknowingly fueled bloodshed far beyond their local trade. Before he could react, time twisted. His body unraveled in pain as her voice echoed a single command: rewind. With a casual grin, the girl restored shattered glass, her power precise and unnerving. Terrified, the man revealed everything he knew, describing a strange girl linked to a recent attack. Hearing cries nearby, she sprinted off, suspecting a comrade might be in danger. A gruesome figure stood impaled, yet alive, as a horned girl encouraged him to rise again. Despite his wounds, the corpse stirred magic, forcing life where there should be none. With sheer force, the wounded man crushed the spear-like bone in his grip, roaring through the pain. Straining to stand, he finally broke free and turned his rage toward the girl who mocked him. Fueled by fury, he hurled a blazing projectile straight at his target, determined to strike back. The girl calmly deflected the attack with a spell, barely interested in his desperate effort, stepping closer. Her gaze turned cold. Playtime was over. She whispered his sentence: death. The man turned away, calmly flicking a cigarette as he prepared to strike back with intent. His eyes burned with fury, vowing no mercy and dismissing any plea before it could form. Cracking his knuckles, he demanded answers, finally catching a trail that could lead to the drug's origin. But another girl emerged, wielding electric magic, taunting him with confidence and knowledge of his weakness. With a manic grin, she lifted her wand, ready to test if resurrection could defy instant death. Dodging massive attacks, he knew one hit to his head or heart would end everything instantly. Realization struck: his movements were predictable. He had to outthink her to survive, but hesitation nearly cost him his life. An enemy's voice screamed at him to act, not analyze. The girl grew frustrated. He wasn't following her plan to become artful bait. Glancing at the dossier, she realized he wasn't a nobody. He was far more dangerous than expected. Frustrated, the girl crumpled her plan and tossed it aside, demanding results from her unseen ally. She raised her wand, declaring the man's end. He had served his purpose, now it was time to eliminate him. Before the final strike landed, time twisted once again, with a familiar spell: rewind. Together, the magical girl and her wounded ally rose, radiating with restored energy and determination. Concrete slipped from his hand, returned to liquid form, a clear sign her magic had turned the tide. Despite his protest, she praised him playfully, treating him more like a pet than a partner. Frustration flared as he scolded her for nearly getting him killed due to unclear instructions. A darker truth settled between them: this enemy wouldn't hesitate. Resurrection wasn't guaranteed. The two magical girls finally reunited, their smiles sharp with hidden hostility and layered insults. Underneath the banter, deadly intent surfaced. One had orders to kill, the other simply pitied her. Fury exploded as accusations flew, exposing betrayal and bitter resentment between former allies. Both sides prepared to attack, weapons drawn, tension thick beneath the city lights. Suddenly, a loud ringtone pierced the moment, breaking the deadly standoff with absurd timing. Annoyed, the girl answered, snapping at her collar while trying to maintain her composure. An order came through, stern and final. She was to abandon the fight and relocate immediately. In a dim room filled with smoke, a man delivered a message under pressure, claiming the demand wasn't his own. The command came from a higher power: Santa Caramello, symbolized by a grim idol beside a plate of tainted candy. With unease in her eyes, the girl urged cooperation, hoping to avoid consequences neither of them could afford. A girl's eye glinted with conviction as she invoked the name Santa Caramello. Tension filled the air as others questioned the meaning behind the name. Uncertain of her intent, in a street soaked with blood, she confronted a man amid chaos, daring him to act. With a cold smirk, she dismissed his offer, choosing her own path. Elsewhere, agents panicked, forced into a battle they never expected. Tension built inside the car as the men exchanged sharp remarks. Their alliance clearly strained, blame shifted, frustration spilling over. One demanded action, while the other claimed helplessness. Meanwhile, a girl voiced her disdain for restrictions, revealing a fierce independence. The mood lightened slightly when she addressed the team with sarcasm and ease. Despite the stress, a subtle gesture between comrades hinted at mutual respect. Under the quiet night sky, an empty park sat still between tall city buildings. She savored a warm treat, delighted by its comforting flavor and rich texture. Beside a whimsical octopus slide, she offered the food to her reluctant companion, who questioned the timing. Explaining their unique craving for sweets, she traced it back to the effects of magic and the drug known as candy. Their calm exchange drew suspicion from a third figure, who questioned the presence of someone unseen. With a calm yet eerie demeanor, Sakaki confronted Susui, proposing the existence of unseen magical beings. Their conversation shifted to light teasing as they gathered near the playground, bonds subtly forming. Behind the scenes, operations had been manipulated. Sakaki's strategy included feeding false intel and orchestrating infiltration. Susi's confusion grew. He questioned how he could perceive the girl without using the drug. Grinning, Sakaki dismissed science, suggesting candy rewrites the rules altogether. Withdrawal from candy wasn't immediate. Its symptoms crept in slowly, then overwhelmed users with unbearable pain and mental chains. To Sakaki, the drug represented pure evil, deceptively packaged and deadly by design. He reminded Susi of their earlier vow to do whatever it took, even endure addiction, to end the nightmare. Despite his composed tone, Sakaki's eyes revealed unwavering conviction in his mission. Susi, tense and wide-eyed, was forced to confront his own dedication. Without warning, Sakaki reached for a folder, casually offering to explain everything. Holding classified documents, he revealed details from the investigation into candy's elusive manufacturer. Susi scanned the pages, his expression shifting from confusion to outright shock. Riri added to the revelation Jinsei clan had been secretly sourcing candy outside official channels, betrayed and exposed. The clan was no longer a client, but a target for retaliation. Out at sea, crew members demanded answers, confused by their vague mission. Takashi Hisatomi barked orders, revealing little, only that they were posing as fishermen for the night. Soon after, something strange was spotted in the water, prompting swift instructions to retrieve it. Divers plunged into the dark waves, surrounding a submerged object as urgency mounted. Moments later, they resurfaced with a secured target, mission partially fulfilled. The crew worked fast, hauling a large crate from the depths with creaking cables and tense focus. As the box breached the surface, bold letters revealed the shocking label Lollipop Candy. Susui's mind raced. If not the manufacturer, then who possessed the power to infuse the drug with magic? A sly grin from the girl hinted she knew far more than she let on. Drawing a crude map in the sand, she exposed the drug's global supply chain starting in Mexico. Questions arose about the Jinsei clan's betrayal. What if they sourced candy from a third party, bypassing the original manufacturer? Such defiance wouldn't go unpunished. Retaliation was certain and already in motion. Black Mamba would spearhead a brutal response, marking the beginning of open conflict. Susui accused the others of manipulation, only to realize they shared the same goal. The decoy had worked, drawing enemies into the open with deadly consequences. They acknowledged the consequence of their actions, initiating the first move that escalated into full-scale narco wars. The Jinsei clan and the mysterious manufacturer were set against each other, using underground candy trafficking as bait. Their actions triggered a brutal narco war that drew in magical girls, gangs, and the Yakuza alike. A girl smiled coldly, declaring her purpose was rooted in love and peace. One man doubted her. He questioned if that would truly erase candy from existence. He warned her if she aimed to become the next manufacturer, he would stop her himself. Riri promised to eliminate every trace of the modified candy, assuring its effects were milder than the original. Her ally questioned whether justifying war with peace could erase the devastation spreading across continents. The scale of destruction became undeniable, millions addicted, thousands killed, and entire communities drowned in chaos. Children were weaponized, officials turned killers, and corruption infiltrated even the highest ranks. Yet amidst this collapse, Some still treated it all as a harmless thrill. Blame fell harshly on all sides, addicts and traffickers alike, condemned as part of the same violence. With unwavering resolve, one man declared he'd sacrifice every criminal if it meant protecting the innocent. The words resonated deeply with Susu, reflecting the rage he himself could no longer suppress. Meanwhile, in Kanto, the arrival of a powerful figure shifted the atmosphere into silence. Underling after underling bowed in respect, heralding the entrance of someone with fearsome authority. More figures stepped out of their vehicles, receiving formal greetings as the tension thickened. Akayanagi, cool and composed, chose to leave most of his men behind to appear less threatening. Susui observed the imposing headquarters, home to Kanto's most powerful criminal syndicate, the Jinsei clan. Inside, questions stirred among the members, unsettled by a rare emergency gathering. At its core stood Goki Kose, a high-ranking leader, demanding respect without uttering many words. Tensions flared as accusations flew. One boss lashed out, furious over secret operations, sullying his name. A composed assistant silently prepared the room, setting up the equipment without drawing attention. The meeting began with a voice-only appearance from Ishin Azakura, the clan's elusive chairman. Everyone listened gravely as news broke 9 members of the Takano family had been slaughtered. Their deaths bore the grotesque signature of a killer, known only as the Artist. From a high-rise office, the chairman made his stance clear: he didn't care for motives. His orders were absolute war would begin the moment the meeting ended. All restraint was discarded. They were to annihilate every trace of the enemy, no matter the cost. Methods were brutal hostage executions and mutilations used as warnings across the city. Their vengeance would be merciless, teaching the world who the real monsters were. Whispers spread as Azakura's leadership had turned the Jinsei clan dangerously unhinged. Outside the building, suspicious eyes watched, wondering what sinister plans were unfolding within. Riri, disguised, attempted to sneak in, but Susi held her back, warning it wasn't the right time. She pushed back, insisting the mission had escalated beyond stealth. It was now a fight for balance. Avoiding law enforcement was crucial. A full-scale war would cost countless civilian lives. The threat loomed: large cartels would kill indiscriminately and use terrorism to maintain control. To avoid civilian casualties, the coming war had to remain between the underworld's own. Riri proposed a bold plan to control the conflict from within, ensuring it never reached the innocent. She assigned the mission to Susi, entrusting him with stopping the descent into chaos. With a grin, he accepted the challenge, knowing there was only one way to find out. Susui was caught off guard and grabbed roughly, but quickly tried to defuse the tension. A senior member stepped in, urging calm and suggesting they ease the mood. With a grin, he proposed a suspiciously cheerful activity: strawberry picking. Confused, Susi and the others exchanged glances, sensing an odd undertone beneath the offer. Susi blended in with a group of men discussing strange plans, masking confusion as one mentioned strawberry picking. Before departing, a girl tossed him a small device, a GPS-equipped bug to stay connected during the mission. He was suddenly ordered to drive a car, where the boss awaited, watching his every move. From a distance, the girl observed with excitement, ready to monitor the unfolding operation. As the convoy entered a tunnel, their secret destination, the narco war, truly began. The boss exhaled calmly, signaling both men to settle down before tensions escalated. Inside the car, he reminded them of their shared roots, calling them brothers under the same crest. Dumaibuchi snapped back, irritated by Susui's gaze and the pressure of always being watched. Behind his anger, Susui hid his true mission: gaining Akayanagi's trust from the inside. Reflecting on Susui's feared past, Umaibuchi questioned how someone like him earned such reverence. Tension thickened inside the car as Susui quietly fumed, while Umabuchi brooded beside him, both simmering with mutual disdain. They exchanged silent threats and hostile thoughts, unable to hide their resentment even in close quarters. From the back seat, the boss calmly observed, his cigarette smoldering as he read the strained atmosphere. Eventually, the car rolled to a stop at a remote rest area surrounded by strawberry signs. Inside a secluded facility, the boss hinted at an impending war. Susi stared in disbelief as rows of gleaming strawberries sparkled under the greenhouse lights. To his surprise, workers were genuinely tending crops, confirming it was a real strawberry farm. Akayanagi explained how the operation provided honest work. Tasting one, Susi reluctantly admitted its sweetness while the host proudly offered more. With a smile, Akayanagi spoke of global ambitions, dreaming of spreading Japan's strawberries across the world. Akayanagi revealed a hidden vault beneath the floor, subtly challenging the girl who observed from afar. Peering through her binoculars, she sensed deception. Nothing about the place felt as innocent as it seemed. From her high vantage point, she studied the layout, deciding it was too risky to approach directly. Frustrated and disoriented, she admitted defeat, craving strawberries more than answers. Just then, a stranger named Kirishima stumbled onto the scene, equally confused by his surroundings. The girl questioned the newcomer, wary of his awareness. Suspecting he might be a candy user, Kirishima introduced himself, and vaguely claimed to work at a nearby strawberry farm, though he forgot where. He admitted to always getting lost, as the farm didn't appear on any digital maps. She revealed a training exam was underway, while silently analyzing his combat-ready posture. Despite the exam being optional, Kirishima's twisted grin revealed genuine enthusiasm for what lay ahead underground, lulled into a dim stairwell. The group descended while the boss offered no answers, only promises. At the base, Susui realized a secret route had existed beneath the farm all along. A keycard unlocked a secure door, triggering mechanical sounds and wide-eyed suspicion. Inside was a full-scale underground facility. Men trained, lifted, and armed themselves with ruthless intensity. Seeing the militarized setup, Susu panicked, questioning if this force was preparing to strike Japan. Susu listened as the boss reflected on the old Yakuza ideals: justice, loyalty, and public symbolism. But that image shattered as he coldly dismissed sentiment, demanding all idealism be abandoned immediately. The truth was unveiled. This wasn't just a gang, it was a militarized force, modeled after elite armies. Inside the cages, brutal sparring revealed their readiness to annihilate rival factions without hesitation. With initiation near, Susi realized these men weren't gangsters. They were soldiers bred for war. Susi and Umabuchi froze as they were ordered to fight each other to the death. Only the victor would earn acceptance into the organization, proof of resolve and madness. Meanwhile, Kirishima stared at his phone, annoyed he'd missed the initiation entirely. Stranded and weaponless, he sulked on a roadside bench with his empty case beside him. Suddenly, he stood and smiled, addressing someone unseen, his tone dangerously casual. The girl stood firm, clutching her weapon as the armed man questioned her hidden identity. On a quiet bridge, Riri confronted a tall stranger who immediately sensed her killing intent. Rather than hide his motives, he calmly threatened her with a swift and brutal end. She tilted her head, analyzing the situation with a faint, unreadable smile. Summoning her power, Riri saw no choice but to prepare for lethal force. With a chilling gaze, she warned him not to hold a grudge in the afterlife. As a child, he watched documentaries alone in a messy room, absorbing the laws of predators. The ruthless instinct of lions, killing cubs to secure dominance, left a lasting impression on him. That mindset resonated deeply, shaping his beliefs from a very young age. In school, he took down a gang and ruled by force, making subordinates out of enemies. To maintain power, he humiliated rivals and destroyed lives without remorse, just like the lions he admired. Throughout his youth and even under the Yakuza, he thrived by crushing the weak through violence. In back alleys and narrow halls, he rose in power by beating others into submission. His attention soon turned toward a rising name, Akira Susui, whose reputation irritated him for too long. With a smirk, he moved to confront the target face to face under dim tunnel lights. Without hesitation, he struck first, aiming to silence the defiance before it could speak. Armed with bats and hatred, the gang ambushed Akira, hurling slurs and swinging without mercy. Their leader planned to break him completely physically, emotionally, and socially. Yet Akira, bloodied and crouched, didn't crumble. His defiance shook the man watching. Despite overwhelming odds, Akira fought back alone until police lights ended the onslaught. Shamed and enraged, the boss saw resistance as unforgivable a sin he could neither accept nor forget. The gang adopted a brutal rule: blood in, blood out, where killing proved loyalty and desertion meant death. News of a loophole thrilled the leader, finally giving him permission to act against Susui. Twisted satisfaction crept in. Years of waiting for a reason had finally paid off. Consumed by obsession, he trembled with anticipation, unable to contain his violent glee. But in one sudden move, Susui shattered the moment, tossing him aside like dead weight. Dazed and confused, the gang leader crashed to the ground, unsure how he'd been launched. As he raised a hand in panic, Susui lunged forward without hesitation. A powerful strike sent him reeling again, landing with a harsh thud. Nearby, the observing boss calmly reminded his men that no signal had been given. Instead of scolding, he smiled, pleased by Susui's raw, unrestrained aggression. Susui charged forward with wild energy, embodying the ruthless spirit Chairman Azekura demanded. Cornered and furious, the gang leader drew a gun, screaming threats as he reached to fire. A single shot rang out raw panic and violence clashing in an instant. Even beaten down, the man tried to stand tall, refusing to accept defeat. With gun raised once more, he vowed vengeance, seething with wounded pride. Gunfire echoed as Susui sprinted through a hail of bullets, unfazed by the chaos. His opponent fired wildly, shouting threats while Susui closed the distance with unwavering focus. Without slowing, Susui seized a heavy barbell, ignoring the danger. Weapon in hand, he advanced, eyes locked on his panicked enemy. Faced with an empty gun and a roaring charge, the man saw only raw, unstoppable fury. With a brutal swing of the barbell, Susui delivered a crushing blow that sent his enemy flying. Broken and defeated, the man collapsed as Susui stepped forward, met with a cold stare from the boss. Grabbing the man by the head, Susui declared his disgust, calling him filth for pushing drugs. His fury boiled over. He vowed to obliterate everyone behind the operation, naming names without fear or hesitation. Gunmen readied their weapons, but the boss sighed in irritation, unimpressed, and already tired of the spectacle. Susui stood over his fallen opponent, unaware he'd violated protocol by holding back the final blow. Despite the misstep, the boss accepted him without hesitation. Susui was officially part of the organization. Faced by armed enforcers, Susui receives a cold welcome and quiet acceptance into the group. Their leader, exuding power and arrogance, introduces the place with a twisted grin. They call it the farm. Mocking old codes, the guards reject honor and justify their methods with ruthless pragmatism. Everyone there lives by a brutal truth. Violence isn't a means, it's the entire purpose. Now Susui must confront a chilling choice: abandon his humanity, or be devoured by the system. Susui gives his silent approval, his eyes locked on the leader, signaling full commitment to the cause. A wild concert erupts inside the club. Cheering crowds, flashing lights, and thundering beats fill the stage. One performer calls for unity, challenging discrimination, shouting against the world's divisions through his powerful message. In unison, the crowd roars back, energized by his words and craving a promised answer to their pain. As the beat drops, mouths open to candy, the drug merging with music to bring artificial happiness. Under the drug's effects, the crowd plunges into chaos. Euphoria turns to madness as joy and terror mix. From above, a man condemns the fantasy, exposing candy's dark truth behind the illusions of peace. Blame is cast on one man who dragged their group into disgrace, aligning them with brutal drug lords. The gang's past is revealed, once lawless, but proud, now overrun by outsiders and their magical enforcers. Rokuro Saito, former Black Mamba leader, listens with unease as his legacy is questioned and mocked. A twisted figure, covered in grotesque markings, stands twitching under the effects of candy and torment. Meru-chan, proudly presenting the distorted creation, offers it as a tribute. While mocking the old guard, fear creeps in as the men realize what melting really means: an agonizing fate they want no part of. Recognition dawns. The mutilated figure once belonged to their own. An original member of Black Mamba. Yamano's identity is confirmed. Shock spreads as they question how their ally fell so far unnoticed. Seiya is greeted casually, as if nothing's wrong, while the mutilated man is brushed off like trash. Yamano's punishment is explained: his identity erased by Meru's drug after defying orders in wartime. They justify it as a lesson, claiming leadership demands cruelty to enforce order and loyalty. Impatience grows. Seiya demands answers, brushing off formalities, and pressing for the true reason they're summoned. Their mission is revealed: destroy the Jinsei clan and assassinate its powerful chairman. Asakura plans are progressing, but Seiya identifies an unexpected threat, one name that wasn't supposed to return: Akira Susui. Meru explains that Susui has resurfaced, now working alongside the elusive magical girl, Riri Hoshina. Confusion grows as Seiya recalls, Riri was believed dead after the battle a decade ago. With a bitter tone, Meru admits some girls went missing. Riri might be one of the survivors. Another girl mocks Riri's past, calling her a useless freak who survived by hiding behind others, while others question their rivalry. Meru confesses she always wished her former comrade would just die. That buried resentment erupts, her expression twisted in rage as past emotions surge uncontrollably. Seiya's attempt to intervene backfires, triggering hostility as Meru asserts her authority and disdain for humans. Fueled by fury, she lashes out, warning never to belittle a magical girl's painful past. Before violence escalates, another forceful voice commands her to stop. Freezing the moment with authority, Miraka steps in, warning Maru to restrain herself or face punishment once again for disobedience. Her words shift the room's mood. Tension fades as everyone's attention turns to new intel from an informant. With news in hand, Miraka initiates Phase 2 of their plan. The countdown to the Jinsei clan's destruction begins. Meanwhile, Susui prepares to reconnect with the NCD, accepting help for a guided return. Simone eagerly volunteers to accompany him, setting the stage for an unexpected encounter. Susui is suddenly grabbed by a lively stranger who insists on guiding him. The blonde introduces himself cheerfully, masking injuries with a grin that unsettles Susui. A familiar scent triggers suspicion. Susu realizes this person smells just like someone he killed. Kirishima confronts Susui, narrowing his eyes at the scent he recognizes from someone recently killed. Susi deflects calmly, blaming the odor on blood, but Kirishima remains skeptical. Mocking him, Kirishima dismisses the claim and demands more respect, drawing attention from nearby men. A sudden hunch strikes. Kirishima becomes certain Sushi met with Hoshina, though he lacks proof. Questions swirl as Kirishima wonders if magic marked Sushi too. Kirishima cheerfully offers to show Susui around, brushing aside tension with a grin. Reluctantly, Susui agrees, masking his unease beneath a forced breath and cautious words. Without warning, Kirishima swings his guitar case with startling force, nearly striking Susu. Breathing heavily, Susui tries to understand the strange shift, while Kirishima plays dumb. Confusion sets in as Susui questions the man's intentions, realizing escape may be harder now. Susui reels from the near miss, shaken by the delayed recognition of deadly intent. Elsewhere, a suited man watches calmly, asking Kirishima if the new recruit met expectations. Kirishima gives his approval, noting Susi's sharp instincts under pressure. Changing the subject, Susi presses Kirishima about the earlier comment regarding a girl's death. Caught off guard, Kirishima stammers, then casually shrugs it off as a mistake, in memory. Kirishima wraps an arm around Susi, declaring it's time for a proper tour of the facility. With exaggerated flair, he encourages Susi to simply follow his lead without hesitation. As the sun begins to set, the view shifts away from the pair, casting shadows over the landscape. Elsewhere, a girl rests alone by vending machines, exhausted and breathing heavily after a draining encounter. Wiping sweat from her face, she reflects on the intense fight, grateful she managed to survive it. In a sudden strike, the girl lands a powerful blow, forcing her attacker backward. Without hesitation, she extends her hand, energy gathering as she activates her ability. A single word escapes her lips. Rewind as her power begins to trigger. Confusion flashes across Kirishima's face as a strange symbol glows above his head. Electric energy surges violently, catching both of them off guard as time starts to shift. Kirishima staggers violently as the magical effect surges through his body. Moments later, he collapses, unconscious, while the girl explains she rewound his memory after their clash, straining from the effort. She reflects on the cost of using magic and accepts she's spent for the day. Her thoughts drift to the past when she and others once fought side by side. Now alone, she stares ahead quietly, burdened by memory and fading strength. In a quiet part of the city, Susi returns to a rundown building, unlocking the door under the cries of crows. Inside, he collapses on the couch, exhausted from the day's events. Earlier, a colleague had told him to get some rest after his difficult mission. Now, new intel arrives. Black Mamba's hideout has been discovered, and the attack is scheduled in 2 days. Susui lies back, realizing this may be his only shot at finding the magical girl and uncovering Candy's source. A new magical girl prepares to outmaneuver rival factions, determined to catch her target first. Meanwhile, Susu tries to rest but reminds himself there's no time to waste. His sleep is interrupted by a familiar voice, calling him. She playfully urges him to wake up. Groggy Susi opens his eyes, startled to find her hovering nearby. Panicked, he yells at her intrusion, but she defends herself, claiming he never answered the door. Susui, still recovering, grows irritated as the girl teases him. Noting he is clearly fine, she urges him to get ready, while he demands to know where they're headed. With a cheerful smile, she announces an unexpected amusement park outing. Marohen World's Gate welcomed visitors with its bright decor and childlike charm. It looked like a place untouched by the outside world. Amid the cheerful surroundings, Susu approached alone, his sharp presence stirring unease among those waiting nearby. He handed over payment without hesitation. The woman at the booth confirmed his entry while curious glances followed him. Riri soon joined him, eyes wide with wonder as she took in the colorful rides and laughing children. Instead of following her, Susi stood back, clearly irritated, watching her admire the odd mascots with unfiltered joy. Riri raised her wand playfully, her stance light, yet somehow challenging. A hint of magic buzzed in the air. Susie hesitated, confronted by her confidence. She offered a choice, her casual tone laced with warning as the tension escalated. Instead of pressing the moment, Riri flashed a harmless smile. Her expression gave nothing away, yet held quiet control. The next moment found them both on a roller coaster. While Riri laughed freely, Susie struggled to hold himself together through the chaos. Later, she scanned the map for another ride. Across from her, Susui slumped in exhaustion, clearly not built for amusement parks, slumped over the table. Susui mumbled threats to himself while Riri casually suggested a kiddie ride, drawing amused looks from nearby guests. Caught off guard by her innocence, he watched as she received cotton candy, revealing she'd never experienced a park like this before. Despite her sweet tone, her words were sharp. She teased without hesitation, mixing menace with charm in a way only she could. As she sat by the Ferris wheel, laughing, Susie observed quietly. For a moment, she looked like any ordinary girl. He scratched his cheek, unsure how to respond. Across the table, Riri stared back, waiting for something he didn't know how to say. Susie leaned forward, signaling the end of their amusement. His tone shifted, ready to discuss the real reason behind their meeting. Riri calmly began, explaining the principles of magic, describing it as a method for bypassing the physical rules of reality. Examples followed: shaping objects freely, reversing their state, but always requiring a target. Nothing appeared from nothing. She stressed the need for constant awareness. Magical girls used their surroundings, and underestimating that could be fatal. Limitations existed. Energy wasn't endless. Survival depended on endurance, observation, and knowing when magic might be turned against you. While seated outside the Mferkin shop, the two exchanged intel. Riri admitted she knew little about the current state of other magical girls. Susui shifted the topic, wondering aloud why Riri seemed isolated from the rest. Her expression changed at the questions. She responded with a cryptic smile, hinting at a story untold. Something unspoken lingered behind her eyes. A memory surfaced, one cloaked in shadow. A powerful figure loomed before a group of girls stained by violence and fear. Riri dismissed the tension with playful sarcasm. Susie, flustered, tried to change the subject, but her teasing continued undeterred. At a distant table, operatives quietly tracked Susui and Riri. Their conversation was brief. The target was now on the move. One figure slipped through the crowd after receiving orders. Their presence vanished into the flow of families and noise. Meanwhile, Susie and Riri approached the Ferris wheel. Staff hesitated, unsure what to make of his sharp demeanor. Questions arose from attendants and guests alike. The sight of a lone, serious man boarding the ride sparked confusion. Unbothered, Riri looked out the window with wonder. The world below shimmered, and for her, the view was enough. While Riri enjoyed the view with childlike enthusiasm, Susie leaned back, drained from the motion. He criticized her presence on the ride, insisting she hadn't even paid. She returned the jab calmly, pointing out his usual lack of appreciation. The atmosphere shifted as Riri's playful tone faded. For a moment, she grew quiet, catching her breath, before addressing him seriously. With the cityscape behind them, Susie posed a direct question. He wanted to know her real intent when they found those responsible. She didn't shy away. Pressing further, she asked if Santa Caramello was his enemy, or if something deeper still tied him to them. Riri turned the question back on Susie, her expression steady. She wanted to know what he truly intended to do once they found their targets. Without hesitation, Susie answered. His voice was cold and direct. He would kill them all. Every last one, no matter what. From the top of the Ferris wheel, the city stretched out beneath them. He declared that past heroism or government orders meant nothing to him. Memories surfaced in his mind, violent, raw, and unforgiving. He saw the magical girls not as victims or tools, but as monsters who created ruin. Her gaze softened, but her words were firm. Before judgment, they needed truth, and capturing them was the first step. Glass exploded inward as an intruder kicked through the gondola's window. Riri froze in shock while Susui turned swiftly toward the threat, caught off guard by the sudden attack. A figure stepped into the broken frame, cloaked in black, holding a curved blade. The weight of familiarity sank, and both Riri and Susui recognized the masked arrival. She lowered her hood, revealing a face from the past. With firm eyes, she addressed Riri directly. The reunion wasn't friendly. High above the city in a Ferris wheel cabin, Riri faced two figures. One cloaked in mystery, the other observing silently. Recognition dawned on the man as he stepped back. Another magical girl stood before them. She brushed off the tension with sarcasm, masking deeper intent. Instead of wavering, Riri stood firm across from her. The girl lit a cigarette, acknowledging without surprise which path Riri had chosen. Memories of the past surfaced as Riri addressed the woman once known for uniting them. Those days were long gone. Now in command, the former ally dismissed questions and seized control. Riri, unwavering, prepared to stand against her. Accusations were made. Riri was suspected of supplying a counterfeit version of candy to the Jinsei clan. Her gaze sharpened, but she remained silent. The imitation drug lacked potency. It barely contained any magic, wasn't addictive, and was dismissed as ineffective by those in control of the original supply. With a thin veil of irritation, the woman made her disdain clear. She viewed the knockoff as tarnishing candy's image and legacy. Riri, seated calmly, defended the diluted formula. To her, reducing its harm was a necessary compromise. Her stance was dismissed as naive. The opposing side had broader, darker ambitions beyond human recognition. A gun was drawn, the metal cold and ready. The man made it clear he didn't care about motives, only the threat in front of him, facing the group. He condemned their past sins. The chaos they created left him with no guilt about pulling the trigger. Suspicion flared. The woman questioned the man's connection to Riri, suggesting something deeper between them. Riri deflected the implication, clutching her magical staff while denying any understanding of their assumptions. Her opponent stepped forward, wand in hand, vowing to sever Riri from the illusion she believed in by force if needed. Without hesitation, she raised her staff and activated a powerful spell. One word slipped from her lips: rewrite. Bolts loosened as the Ferris wheel's core began to come apart. Screws clattered down the metal frame, triggering panic. Realizing the danger, Susi reacted with alarm. His fury erupted, caught between disbelief and desperation. A deep mechanical snap followed. The gondola's structure had been compromised, and nothing was holding it in place anymore. As chaos unfolded below, she stood above it all unshaken. With a single step, she watched the cabin plunge from its path. Hovering above the chaos, she whispered her farewell sayonara. Alarms triggered, and terrified voices echoed across the park. At the last second, a magical wand activated. Another magical girl called out a desperate spell rewind to halt the fall. The gondola suddenly jerked mid-air. Susui lunged to reach safety as the cab threatened to crash. He barely made it, heart pounding. Shaken but alive, he climbed back inside, narrowly avoiding death. Relief was short-lived. A new barrage of projectiles descended from above, eyes wide in disbelief as weapons rained toward him. Riri conjured a shield of wands, intercepting the incoming barrage. Susu flinched under the storm, overwhelmed by the assault. Her focus faltered. Another crisis unfolded. A gondola slipped free. She braced herself but realized she couldn't do it alone. Susui broke into a sprint, eyes locked on the falling children. The Ferris wheel groaned as chaos escalated. Another ally launched into a dive. He wrapped the children in his arms mid-fall, declaring he would break their landing, regardless of the cost. Tears welled in Riri's eyes. She refused to accept his sacrifice, her heart trembling with defiance. Before she could complete her spell, Riri was struck mid-cast. Glass shattered as she crashed backward from the brutal impact. The attacker looked down with disdain. Her punch had landed clean, her expression unshaken. She dismissed humanity's worth, claiming their lives were only spared through magical intervention. Without them, they'd have perished long ago. But Riri rose again, wand in hand, her magic flaring brighter than ever. Determination gleamed in her eyes. Recognition dawned. Not bad, the enemy muttered. From below, Susi looked up, stunned to see her standing tall once more. Riri stood firm, confronting Mirika. Former allies now faced off, divided by betrayal and innocent bloodshed. As twilight blanketed the city skyline, Mirika appeared high above, exuding an air of menace. Opposite her, the girl remained calm and composed. With a firm stare, she acknowledged the danger, fully aware of the price that came with opposing magical girls. Without hesitation, the battle erupted. Mirika muttered a single word: rewrite, triggering a sudden storm of conjured weapons. Amid the chaos, something unexpected spun toward them. Mirika's eyes widened as she identified the object: an unmagical, brutal tool of war. A grenade had entered the fray. Detonation came swiftly, filling the air with blinding light and deafening force. The impact shattered the silence, marking the beginning of a deadly escalation. The ground trembled beneath Riri's feet as the explosion echoed through the city. Nearby train passengers jolted, confused by the sudden shockwave that shook the car. High above the fairgrounds, the detonation illuminated the sky, drawing attention to the Ferris wheel as flickers of energy crackled ominously through the air. Mirika reappeared, her expression cold and confident. She reminded Riri of her unique power magic that allowed her to reshape reality itself. Through manipulation of roles and function, Miraka could redefine the very laws of matter, even turning structural bolts into tools of chaos. Riri pieced it together. Miraka had rewritten the air around her to become a solid barrier. She raised her wand, calm and focused. She had studied Miraka's strengths, but more importantly, she knew her vulnerability. A cluster of star-shaped charges surrounded Miraka, each one glowing with magical energy. Her posture tensed as she realized the threat closing in. Riri advanced, revealing her knowledge of the delay between Miraka's spell casts, caught off guard. Miraka scrambled to respond as debris flew around her. One star pulsed brighter. It was the grenade from earlier, now rewound in time. Miraka's eyes widened at the realization, but it was already too late. The explosion ripped through the battlefield again, engulfing her in blinding force. Riri stood firm as the shockwave rolled past. Miraka, cracked and smoldering, remained unfazed. She revealed that over the past decade, she had refined her abilities, shortening the spell delay Riri once relied on. A sudden ambush broke her speech. Two agents lunged from the shadows, hoping to subdue her by force. One managed to grab hold. She responded with swift, practiced movement. Her body spun as she countered effortlessly, hurling them away with precision and control. The man hit the ground hard, stunned. Miraka's demeanor remained steady, revealing not just magic but mastery of close-quarters combat. With a dismissive glare, she cast one final spell. The agent was thrown back violently as she declared him unworthy of her attention. Under Miraka's command, a gondola tore free from the Ferris wheel and rocketed through the air. Riri watched in shock as it hurtled directly toward her. Before she could react, Miraka appeared behind her, staff drawn. In a calm, cold voice, she declared the game over. Elsewhere on the wheel, bystanders looked on in confusion and fear, unable to comprehend the chaos unfolding before them. Riri didn't flinch. With steady resolve, she warned Miraka that no force could stop what was coming. A sudden beeping echoed between them. With a dark smile, Riri offered a final proposal. If no one could win, they'd fall together. Powerful blast ripped through the Ferris wheel structure, metal shattering and sparks scattering in every direction. Survivors stumbled through the debris. Among them, Susi pushed forward, injured but determined. He crawled across the fractured ground as screams echoed from above. Anger boiled in his chest. Memories of Riri's conviction surged through him. Without her, how was he supposed to fight against the drug syndicate's core? To his disbelief, she appeared ahead completely unharmed, casually holding a mic, her voice playful, her eyes calm. A party popper burst in her hand, showering him with streamers. Stunned and confused, Susi could only blink in silence as she grinned mischievously. Susi stood in disbelief, staring at Riri, who had clearly survived the explosion. The damage should have been fatal, yet there she was, perfectly intact. They exchanged exhausted remarks as reality settled in. Both should have been dead. Neither had a real explanation. The Ferris wheel now floated peacefully, as if untouched. Despite their survival, the true enemy had escaped. Susi questioned whether Miraka regenerated in time, but Riri reminded him who'd really been spared. Elsewhere, Miraka sat silently in a vehicle, surrounded by allies. Her expression calm. She watched the city disappear behind her. She explained she had a debt to settle, one owed to Riri. Letting her live was repayment. In her mind, they were even now. Inside the car, Miraka ended her observation with a quiet command. The brief detour was over now. It was time to resume their true mission. She activated the next phase, instructing her subordinate, Meru, to initiate the operation without delay. Meru responded cheerfully, ready for action. The mood shifted as her demeanor turned focused. Outside a Yakuza building, Meru stepped forward, with weapon in hand. She launched her assault on the Jinsei clan. At the center of the street, a girl in a frilled uniform stood boldly among masked men, her presence signaling the start of a deadly mission. Eyes locked forward, glowing with twisted resolve, she marked her enemies with unwavering intent, determined to cleanse the city's filth. Elsewhere, a thick envelope landed on a desk with a thud as a subordinate reported the month's earnings to a stern-faced boss. Latter echoed as the group admired their profits, unaware of shadows climbing down the building toward them. Shattered glass rained down as armed intruders stormed the office, cutting the celebration short in an instant. A masked soldier raised his weapon in silence as a gang member stepped forward, demanding answers with visible confusion and rising panic. Without hesitation, the invader took aim. Twin rifles lifted simultaneously, unleashing a deadly barrage that struck the first target cleanly. Gunfire ripped through the room, shattering walls and sending blood, money, and bodies flying. Chaos erupted in a split second. Lone survivor scrambled down a hallway, crawling in desperation. He turned to see a shadowy figure glowing ominously, with pulsing energy. Standing before a mountain of crystalline spikes, the magical girl smiled coldly. Her attack had already finished the rest. Smirking with delight, the magical girl declared the hunt over. Her target had no chance of slipping away, behind overturned tables. Survivors trembled. One tried calling for backup, but panic clouded every move as gunfire rang out nearby. Suddenly, she appeared above him, cheerful and calm, perched like a predator. His hands shook as her shadow loomed over his fate. Explosions lit the building behind her. While one girl wandered through the aftermath, another skipped down blood-stained steps, pleased with the outcome. Elsewhere, a man in a car received dire news. Every allied group across the city was under simultaneous assault. Steel poles crashed down with brutal force, shattering the windshield and bringing the fleeing car to an abrupt, deadly halt. Not far away, a calm woman lowered her hand, the aftermath of her calculated strike echoing across the street. Civilians gathered around the wreck, stunned by the sudden explosion. While bystanders called for help, others watched in silent realization. Turning from the scene, the woman exhaled smoke. Her decision was made long ago. She claimed no ties to ordinary humanity. Meanwhile, in a quiet parking lot, two new characters arrived. One woke gently, just as the car reached its destination. Under the night sky, he leaned against the car, quietly smoking, reflecting on how drained she must have felt after everything. Inside, they discussed the day's chaos. The girl's violent power was undeniable, and more like her could still be out there. Moments later, she stirred awake, annoyed he hadn't woken her. He brushed it off, radio in hand, monitoring their next move. She offered him a canned drink, sensing his weariness. Though teasing, her gesture carried quiet concern behind it. As they sat together overlooking the city, the girl expressed disillusionment. Innocents were targeted, allies were gone, nothing would be the same. Determined and clear-eyed, the girl voiced her resolve to end the senseless conflict using their own strength. Her partner nodded, ready to reassess the situation. The smoke from his cigarette lingered as tension thickened in the air. They mapped out the next moves. The Black Mamba faction would likely launch the first attack, drawing in rival forces. An all-out war between Black Mamba and the Jinsei clan was inevitable, but their focus remained separate from that chaos. During the confusion, their real mission would begin locating a key figure and capturing magical girls to neutralize Santa Caramello's threat. A cigarette butt crushed underfoot, and with it, a question followed: what exactly was his part in this growing conflict? The answer came through a simplified briefing. His task wasn't just combat, it was manipulation, directing both friend and foe alike. Her condition was clear. If they wanted her cooperation, she wanted a private meeting with Meru, nothing less. A sharp gaze followed her words. Susiwi took in the demand with quiet intensity, understanding the weight behind it. Despite the vagueness of the plan, she expressed confidence. She trusted Susi to improvise and survive when the chaos finally erupted. Her eyes sparkled with warmth as she looked up, offering him a silent reassurance he hadn't realized he needed. Amid the crowd, she stood still, radiant and determined. Her voice reached him soft, but resolute, urging him to believe in himself. A strange sensation washed over him. Her image faded like a dream, yet the feeling lingered, stirring something within him. Moments later, Susi took a call. The voice on the other end was sharp and businesslike. Orders were incoming. He listened carefully. The time had come. Tomorrow, the operation would begin, and there'd be no turning back. A man bit into a strawberry with a twisted grin as skeletal soldiers advanced, preparing for a devastating global drug war. Bodies from the Jinsei clan's lower ranks lie scattered across the ground, a brutal testament to a one-sided slaughter. Pinned to one corpse is a heart-shaped tag with the word "Welcome," smeared with gore, a twisted signature left behind by the attackers. A hotel window, a laptop screen lists the names of 4 entire crime families, all reportedly eradicated without warning. Gripping a glass tightly, a crime boss slams the table, shocked by the scale of destruction achieved overnight by an unknown force. Unease spreads among the remaining leaders. Whispers of monsters, Black Mamba agents, and unseen horrors fuel their dread as the clan faces collapse. A man exhales smoke with a grin, his words laced with confidence as he assures the room that everything is under control. At that moment, armed units move out, initiating a well-planned raid on Black Mamba's hideout. Inside, their commander monitors progress from behind a laptop screen. Among the strike force is an elite squad, 12 specially trained operatives, each prepared for high-risk urban warfare. Tempers flare as 2 soldiers clash over tactics outside a shady building named Club Funny, highlighting cracks in their coordination. Back at HQ, their superior dismisses doubts. With a sharp glare, he reminds them of the chairman's orders, silencing hesitation with contempt. Without hesitation, one of Akayanagi's men executes a rival mid-sentence. He mocks the old guard's values, declaring that outdated codes have no place in the current war. Outside, a girl's feet overlook a fresh scene of carnage. Below, gunfire echoes as enemies fall, while Susie stands resolute, unfazed by the bloodshed. From the street, a girl with short pale hair sends her trust forward. With quiet determination, she speaks his name and places her faith in his actions. Inside the building, armed men take position before a double door. Susui lays out the mission: capture Meru, no mistakes, no distractions, looming over them all. Their commander issues a final provocation. Susu glances sideways as his comrade laughs off the tension. Confidence fills the air, masking the violence to come with reckless enthusiasm. Moments later, the strike team storms in. Their leader's final command urges them to unleash chaos, no restraint, no mercy. Inside, a brightly lit hall, a sudden shock ripples through the gathered crowd as rifles descend from the balcony above. What was meant to be a clean entry turns into an ambush. From above, a hidden unit opens fire with precision rifles. Gunfire erupts in all directions. One soldier shouts over the noise, reporting movement. Laughter and blood mix as the ambush intensifies. A grinning girl utters the word need, and reality distorts. Below her, Susui's squad senses the unnatural force radiating in waves. Panic erupts among the men. One soldier points in terror at a small figure inhuman, smiling, and clearly lethal. The ceiling shatters. Screams follow. Somewhere else, a voice responds calmly over a radio. He repeats her description but urges his men to stay focused and remember protocol. In response, Susi and his comrade spring into action. They show no hesitation, whatever horror awaits. They have monsters of their own to unleash, high above. The girl looms silently. Their enemies scramble to make sense of her presence, unaware she has already turned the battlefield against them. Charging in recklessly, the blonde soldier challenges Susu to a deadly competition. Whoever kills the girl first wins. There is no hesitation in his grin. As he launches forward with a crazed smile, Susi struggles to keep pace. His only thought to pull his partner back before it's too late. Dodging a near-fatal strike, the reckless fighter laughs off the danger. The thrill of battle clearly fuels him more than survival instinct. Without warning, another teammate intercepts and kicks him mid-charge, knocking his attack off course. Tension between allies suddenly spills into physical blows. Thrown into a pile of debris, he staggers up in disbelief. His knife trembles in hand as confusion replaces his adrenaline. Still dazed, the blonde soldier stares in disbelief, asking why his own ally attacked him. His manic grin never quite fades. The two argue, face to face. Accusations are exchanged. One claims to have saved the other from a blind spot. Susi seizes the opportunity. He sends an order to pursue the girl, keeping the team's hothead focused elsewhere. A sigh escapes him. Strategy wins again. Above them, Hoshina descends through a torn ceiling, eyes locked on the girl below. The atmosphere shifts as a new presence claims the stage. Recognition flashes. Hoshina's arrival stuns Meru, who turns at the sound of her name. Their encounter isn't random. This is unfinished business. Locked in midair, Hoshina and Meru clash wands. Sparks of magical energy surge between them. As their eyes burn with rivalry, a massive explosion erupts from the balcony, blinding light flooding the battlefield and shaking the entire venue with its raw force. In a dark tunnel, bullets ricochet wildly. One man panics while his comrade drops beside him. Struck down without warning, frantic footsteps echo through the corridor. Fear-stricken men flee, shouting that death is certain and their enemies are far beyond reason. Turning a corner, one of them halts, only to find a gun pointed directly at him by someone he didn't expect to be there. One man freezes in fear as a bullet tears through his skull, fired without hesitation by someone he thought was on his side. Seiya steps in, calm and detached. He claims responsibility for the fallen man's task, dismissing any pretense of teamwork. Later, bloodied and annoyed, he walks the corridor. Cleanup wasn't his plan, but now, it's his mess. Akira, a young man with slightly curly black hair and earrings, stands injured inside a ruined hallway. Blood marks his face and vest. Across from him, a calm man in a suit smokes while holding a gun. Damaged walls filled with bullet holes surround them. Debris covers the floor. The suited man lowers his weapon slightly, examining Akira carefully. Despite his wounds, Akira stays alert and refuses to retreat. From the upper level, the devastation becomes clearer. Bodies lie across the floor below. The suited man gestures toward the destruction, making Akira face the true scale of the ongoing conflict. Distance between them shortens as tension shifts. Serious expressions replace open hostility. The suited figure suggests cooperation through his posture, while Akira silently considers his limited options. Abruptly, the suited man moves behind Akira and presses close. Irritation crosses Akira's face, yet he steadies himself and pushes forward, determined to regain control. A sharp gaze fixes on Akira as the suited man grips a concealed baton. Confidence replaces earlier calm. Akira turns slightly, sensing danger but refusing to show hesitation. Without warning, the suited man swings the baton toward Akira's head. Surprise flashes across Akira's face as he reacts a fraction too late. Impact echoes through the hall. Akira blocks with his arm and counters, immediately driving his weapon toward the attacker's side with controlled force. Electric current surges from the baton as it strikes Akira's body. Pain tightens his expression, yet he steps forward instead of collapsing. Momentum shifts when Akira lunges decisively. A heavy kick slams into the suited man's guard, forcing him backward as the fight escalates. The suited man raises his gun toward Akira's head at close range. Blood runs down Akira's face as he struggles to stay upright. Calm indifference shows in the attacker's eyes. A gunshot breaks the silence. The suited man fires towards someone on the floor without hesitation. Smoke drifts from the barrel while Akira watches, breathing heavily. Fragments of memory surface in broken flashes. A younger version of the suited man endures poverty, violence, and humiliation. Survival shapes him into someone who trusts nothing but strength. Those harsh years push him into criminal circles. Among criminals and outcasts, he finds belonging and purpose. Loyalty to that world becomes stronger than any moral restraint. Reality returns with a violent charge. Akira roars and drives forward, despite his injuries. His sudden attack forces the suited man to react. As the clash resumes fiercely, Akira charges forward with fury, ignoring the gun aimed at him. Rage hardens his expression as he raises his fist, determined to end the fight with force. His punch connects cleanly with the suited man's face. The impact twists the attacker's head sideways, blood spraying as the blow lands with full strength. The suited man crashes across the floor, sliding through debris. Akira follows through, breathing heavily, refusing to give him time to recover. Above them, a magical girl with heart-shaped eyes watches with unsettling delight. Her smile widens as she observes the violence unfolding below. Another magical girl leaps down from the balcony, weapon in hand. She descends rapidly toward the battleground, shifting the confrontation into a new and dangerous phase. A small magical girl lunges toward a towering creature, shaped like a stitched rabbit. Her kick collides with its body, sending dark fragments into the air as the ground ripples beneath them. Shock crosses her face as strange energy coils around her arm. Nearby, another magical girl with heart-shaped pupils smiles brightly, clearly manipulating the flow of the battle. Black spikes erupt downward, crushing the rabbit creature from above. The attacker lands lightly, observing the impact while the heart-eyed girl watches, with amused approval. Star-shaped light forms around the short-haired girl's hand. She swings her glowing arm toward the other magical girl, aiming to disrupt her control. In response, the heart-eyed girl summons floating capsules filled with dark liquid, suspended in midair. They surround her like weapons, signaling a far more dangerous counterattack. The short-haired magical girl swings her star-shaped weapon, striking the heart-eyed girl's side. Energy bursts outward as the blow lands, forcing her opponent backward in sudden pain. The heart-eyed girl collapses onto the ground, dark liquid splashing from her wound. Confusion replaces her earlier delight, while the attacker steps closer. Watching carefully, silence spreads across the shattered floor. The short-haired girl stands over her fallen rival, calm and composed, assessing whether the threat has truly ended. Star-shaped magic tightens around the injured girl's body. Despite the damage, her form begins to restore unnaturally fast, unsettling the one who struck her down. A distorted smile returns to the heart-eyed girl's face as she bites into something in her hand. Madness fills her wide eyes, promising a far crueler continuation of the fight. Spiral-shaped projectiles crash into the walls around the short-haired magical girl. The heart-eyed girl extends her arm, twisting the energy midair and redirecting it with deliberate control. Electric currents explode outward, surrounding the short-haired girl from every side. The spirals close in rapidly, forcing her to brace as the shockwave engulfs her position. Blasted backward, she shields herself with her star wand while debris rains down. Her body slams against the damaged floor, uniform torn and skin scraped. Above the hall, the heart-eyed girl stands on the balcony, smiling with warped satisfaction. Dark energy gathers behind her as she prepares another assault. Smoke spreads across the ruined stage. The short-haired girl rises slowly, glaring upward, while the remaining men watch in stunned silence, realizing the battle has escalated beyond control. The short-haired magical girl grips her star wand tightly, realizing the overwhelming force gathering against her. Across the hall, Akira and the armed men stare as cracks spread violently through the ceiling. Debris bursts downward, scattering the group below. Amid the chaos, the heart-eyed girl watches with spiraled pupils, her distorted excitement growing as destruction consumes the room. A magical girl unleashes a violent surge of power. Spiral-shaped energy bursts through the room and throws several armed men across the floor. The force of the attack collapses parts of the building. Broken walls and shattered floors fill the corridor with dust and rubble. Soon after, another man walks through the wreckage and approaches the injured one. Their attention shifts to the wounds covering their bodies. Blood continues to flow from the injuries as tension builds inside the ruined structure. His magic refuses to activate, and confusion appears on his face as he studies his own hand and senses something abnormal inside himself. A wounded hand drops a small object onto the cracked floor. The charm lands among scattered rubble as blood spreads between the broken stones. Elsewhere, several girls gather around a glowing stuffed mascot placed at the center of a dark space. Some appear frightened, while others remain uncertain about what is happening. The mascot begins explaining the situation to the gathered girls. It declares that their personal circumstances do not matter anymore. After hearing this announcement, confusion spreads among the girls. One questions the meaning of Earth's fate, while another refuses the idea of fighting. Meanwhile, a magical girl tightly holds someone in her arms. Strong emotions fill her expression as dark thoughts begin forming in her mind. A girl stares forward with a cold determination reflected in her eyes. Deep resentment grows inside her as she grips her star-shaped wand. Soon after, she falls to the ground among shattered fragments of magical items. Her body trembles, while she struggles to move forward. Dark patterns swirl behind her as she calmly explains that saving the world requires drastic actions. Without hesitation, the injured girl leaps forward with her wand raised high. Determination pushes her to attack, despite the overwhelming danger. The smiling magical girl instantly stops the assault. She grabs the attacker mid-air and restrains her completely, ending the desperate attempt before it can succeed. Strong resolve fills her expression as she prepares to act for the sake of protecting the world she once cherished. Star-shaped symbols and glowing objects appear across the air, surrounding the battlefield with a bizarre field of floating items. Among those objects, hidden gun bullets suddenly become visible. The realization shocks the attacking girl as she notices the deadly traps scattered throughout the space. Instantly, the bullets fire from every direction. The magical field unleashes a violent barrage toward the girl in midair. Moments later, the girl collapses onto the ground. A large wound pierces through her body, leaving her weak and unable to continue the fight. A wounded girl lies on the floor after the brutal attack. An injured man rushes toward her through the damaged corridor. He kneels beside the girl and checks her body carefully. Her movement is weak and fading, confirming that the injuries are fatal. Nearby, the victorious magical girl calmly watches the scene. With a strange smile, she declares that the battle has already been decided. Suddenly, a dark spiral portal forms behind her. The energy expands violently, pulling the surroundings into its swirling center. Amid the collapsing space, the man quickly carries the surviving girl away from the battlefield, while the defeated magical girl remains motionless on the ground. Injured girl reveals that a special flash grenade had been hidden inside the food earlier. The sudden explosion and blinding light disrupt the enemy's senses. However, bullets approaching from every direction and the darkness created by the blast change the situation. The carefully planned trap finally takes effect. The girl kneels beside the fallen magical girl and quietly declares that the battle has ended here. Elsewhere, the remaining enemies inside the damaged building panic as the battle concludes. Orders to retreat echo through the collapsing structure. Meanwhile, the surviving fighters regroup in the corridor. One of them prepares to move out, determined to continue the operation despite the destruction left behind. Inside the damaged building, several people panic while urging their leader to escape. Fear spreads through the group as the situation quickly becomes unstable. Nearby, a wounded man silently observes the scene. His tired expression suddenly changes as a painful realization appears in his eyes. Later news reports across the city broadcast the aftermath of the violent gunfight in Shibuya. Outside a large building, a calm man smiles while reflecting on the outcome of the operation. From his perspective, the two fighters performed well. Soon after, he leads the survivors into the facility. The group prepares to continue investigating the strange conflict known as the Narcotics War. Inside a secured interrogation room, a captured magical girl sits restrained on a chair while investigators arrive to begin questioning. A restrained magical girl sits bound to a metal chair, her eyes obscured while a pale interrogator watches closely. Tension fills the narrow room as preparations begin. Elsewhere, Akira, a young man with curly black hair, stands beside a short-haired girl, both facing forward with stern expressions as they assess the situation. Inside a control room, a suited man drinks calmly while reviewing reports about a failed raid and unexpected resistance from their target. During transit, an ally waits on a vessel while operatives gather across regions, positioning themselves for an organized strike against hidden enemies. Back at headquarters, concern rises over the magical girl's endurance as leaders monitor developments, aware that her survival could disrupt their entire operation. Akira stands in the monitoring room with his team, activating the device linked to the restrained magical girl. Surveillance equipment transmits her silence as they attempt controlled contact. The blindfolded girl remains motionless, despite repeated efforts, ignoring their presence while tension spreads among the observers watching her reaction carefully. Security measures are reviewed across the facility, confirming restraints, sealed corridors, and guarded storage areas to prevent any sudden magical activation. Pressure builds as the girl finally reacts with visible anger, while a composed young assistant watches confidently, prepared to intervene if control is lost. Defiance replaces silence when the captive straightens in her restraints. Rejecting their authority as supervisors continue evaluating her condition and endurance. The restrained magical girl leans forward and shouts, refusing to answer questions about the organization and its distribution network. Interrogation continues without progress as she rejects every accusation, resisting attempts to pressure her into revealing motives or collaborators. Suddenly, she accuses the investigators of killing Luca, her voice breaking as anger replaces defiance, and the room falls silent. Akira stands behind the young assistant, watching her lowered head while tension spreads across his expression. Composure returns to the assistant as she shifts the focus toward the reasons behind selling the substance, steering the inquiry back to its objective. Memories surface of abandoned buildings and empty shelters, where she once searched for safety, stealing food to survive, while believing everything had already collapsed. Isolation deepened as former allies turned away, convinced that magical girls were different and could never truly belong among ordinary people. Rain falls over the moment Luca died, her body bound and discarded, while others stood frozen in helpless shock. Grief transforms into fury as tears stream down her face, hatred replacing the hope she once carried. Back in the present, evidence is displayed before Akira and the assistant, reinforcing the claim that betrayal demands punishment without exception. Akira studies the report and recalls his 8-year-old sister, underweight and abused after exposure to the substance spreading through the city. Medical monitors once recorded her decline before she was ultimately killed by their own mother during a breakdown. Rage hardens his expression as he declares that information about Santa Calamaro will be extracted by any means necessary. The restrained magical girl listens without fear, threatening retaliation even while bound to the interrogation chair. Instead of remorse, she mocks the loss, dismissing the death as insignificant and showing no intention of yielding. The captive smiles and belittles their efforts, claiming survival itself was wasted on people she considers worthless. Observers notice her pulse remains steady despite the hostility, creating unease as her calm contradicts the situation. She addresses the narcotics officer directly, hinting that something around them feels different and subtly wrong. A faint glow appears across her chest as hidden magic activates, while the young assistant senses the disturbance too late. Suddenly, dark energy tears through the room, shattering restraints and exposing that the enemy has already infiltrated their secured facility. A young operative stands above the city as smoke erupts from a high-rise, watching flames spread across the upper floors. Elsewhere, 3 conspirators confirm the operation has begun, coordinating movements while tracking the destruction remotely. Across the skyline, the damaged building burns heavily, drawing attention from surrounding districts and emergency services. On the streets below, civilians panic and flee, while one member of the group observes the chaos with satisfaction. Inside a nearby structure, another girl reflects that their objective is rescue rather than total annihilation, even as the tower continues to collapse behind her. Armed officers block the corridor and order the girls to stop as they attempt to move deeper inside the building. One man raises his handgun and warns them not to advance, while the 2 girls hesitate under the threat. A glowing device forms in the horn girl's hand, revealing that she is prepared to respond with force. Without retreating, she charges forward and unleashes explosive magic toward the officers, igniting the hallway in a violent blast. Elsewhere, Akira realizes the diversion was planned to clear a path, understanding that someone intentionally positioned her to strike the narcotics division directly. Still bound to the chair, the captive laughs wildly and declares that destruction no longer matters to her. Confidence grows as she predicts national collapse once the narcotics division falls, expecting wider forces to escalate the conflict. Sudden pain strikes the white-haired operative as electric current surges through the system, interrupting her momentum. Regaining focus, he orders the others to prepare for a counterattack, recognizing that they must respond immediately. At that moment, two intruders burst through a circular portal behind the restrained girl, forcing Akira and his team to confront a direct assault inside their own headquarters. Two intruders confront Akira's team, exposing betrayal, while preparing to trigger another explosion inside headquarters. Akira stands in a dim room where a horned magical girl grins beside a restrained captive. Another girl adjusts the prisoner's bindings while observing calmly. Tension fills the space as they assess the captured suspect connected to the narcotics faction. Elsewhere, Akira faces two men in white coats and a short-haired girl in uniform. Suspicion rises as they reveal knowledge about an undercover agent within the organization. Unease spreads across Akira's expression. The short-haired girl studies him carefully. One of the men smirks with quiet confidence. Realization strikes Akira as he understands that two magical girls are now involved in the conflict. Back in the room, chaos erupts as the captive struggles. Akira arrives and confronts the horned girl. The short-haired girl greets him formally, shifting the atmosphere. Outside, the horned magical girl storms off in frustration. Nearby, the short-haired girl smiles warmly. Akira watches them both, aware that alliances remain unchanged despite rising danger. Akira charges into the room, moving past the restrained girl and her guardian. His expression hardens as he targets the horned magical girl, who watches him without fear. Suddenly, she activates her power. A glowing mark flashes beneath Akira's foot. An explosion erupts from the floor, forcing him back as debris scatters across the room. Smoke clears while the horned girl smiles calmly. The short-haired girl trembles nearby, aware of the destruction. Control of the battlefield shifts toward the magical girl. Recovering quickly, Akira lunges forward with enhanced strength. Energy gathers around his arm as he closes the distance, determined to suppress her magic. In a swift counter, the horned girl flips him over her shoulder and drives him into the ground. Akira grimaces in pain, realizing brute force alone will not defeat her. Akira struggles to rise after the throw, but the horned magical girl strikes his chest with concentrated force. Pain spreads across his body as he is pinned down, unable to counter immediately. The short-haired girl steps forward despite her fear. She raises a small weapon with trembling hands while another ally watches from behind. Determination replaces hesitation as she advances toward Akira. Dark liquid energy surrounds her feet and lifts her into the air. Facing Akira directly, she aims her wand and prepares a controlled magical strike. Calmly, she approaches him again, pressing him for answers while keeping her weapon steady. Akira remains restrained, breathing heavily under the pressure of her power. With a steady expression, she threatens greater destruction if he refuses to cooperate. Magical energy pulses around her as Akira realizes the situation has shifted completely against him. Akira kneels in pain while the horned magical girl stands near the restrained captive. The short-haired girl steadies herself, watching carefully as tension thickens inside the damaged room. Without hesitation, the short-haired girl raises her wand and releases another explosive spell. Energy surges across the hall as an ally fires a gun to support her advance. Fragments of debris and melted matter begin reversing through the air. With controlled movements, she manipulates the destruction, restoring broken pieces while maintaining pressure on the enemy. Analysis flashes through her mind as she explains the nature of the spell. The horned girl stumbles back, forced to reconsider the overwhelming control displayed before her. Small transformed objects hover like grenades around the short-haired girl. She steps forward decisively, proving the battle's outcome now depends entirely on her strategy. Akira rushes forward, deflecting incoming attacks aimed at the short-haired magical girl. Gunfire and magic collide around him as cracks spread across the wall behind. Before she can retreat, a large man seizes her from behind and raises his fist. Debris rains down while she struggles in his grip, unable to escape his strength. Akira appears beside them and strikes the attacker with brutal force. The man staggers, blood running down his face, yet he tightens his hold in defiance. The short-haired girl pleads silently as the struggle intensifies. An ally prepares another spell, while the wounded man refuses to release her. Flames erupt across the room as the horned magical girl unleashes wide destruction. Amid smoke and chaos, Akira shields the short-haired girl, bracing for the next assault. Thick smoke suddenly spreads across the room, forcing Akira and the others to cover their mouths. The horned magical girl realizes too late that the gas has already filled her lungs. Through the haze, a calm figure stands motionless. His silhouette emerges slowly as the smoke surrounds him, controlling the atmosphere with measured precision. Wearing a respirator, the masked man watches the magical girls with steady eyes. Authority radiates from his stance as he assesses their condition without hesitation. Confidence returns to the short-haired girl while the horned one coughs in frustration. The gas limits visibility, disrupting explosive spells and weakening their control. Near the restrained captive, the horned magical girl searches desperately for hidden explosives. Surrounded by lingering smoke, she realizes the battlefield now belongs to someone else. Smoke surrounds the hall as the horned magical girl glares at the others, demanding they remember their purpose. Akira, bruised and exhausted, watches her with fading strength. The short-haired girl, mask secured, calmly states that further destruction is unnecessary. Behind her, the restrained captive shifts weakly while tension lingers in the air. In a surreal vision, bodies lie scattered beneath a dark sky as the horned girl stands apart. Fatigue overtakes her expression, hinting at doubt beneath her anger. Through the haze, the short-haired girl analyzes the situation with quiet certainty. She concludes that their methods only spread harm rather than justice. As smoke thins, the horned magical girl turns away and withdraws from the battlefield. Akira and the others remain standing, aware that this conflict is far from over. A violent explosion tears through the building, shattering walls and sending debris across the street. The blast marks the collapse of the horned magical girl's final plan. Amid the ruins, a lone figure stands watching the destruction. She confirms the outcome internally, aware that the aftermath now rests in someone else's hands. After the explosion, paramedics carried a covered body toward an ambulance, while officers secured the ruined street. Inside the collapsed building, debris shifted and dust filled the air. Someone lay trapped beneath broken concrete, barely conscious as the structure groaned around him. Akira emerged from the wreckage with blood across his face. Two uniformed girls stood behind him, shaken but alive, surveying the damage. Akira studied the magical girl in silence. Tension lingered among them as fragments of the ceiling continued to fall. Later, he crouched on the cracked floor, cigarette in hand, reflecting on the cost of the operation and the uncertain path ahead. Akira stood beside the girl as tears ran down her face. A cigarette rested between his lips while he watched her struggle to steady herself. Fragments of a fallen magical girl shimmered like fading particles across the rubble. The blonde girl faced the remains, shoulders trembling, while Akira leaned back against debris, observing without comfort. She turned from the scattered light and looked at the cracked floor, forcing herself to breathe. Through a circular hole in the wall, the devastated city stretched beyond them. Later, Akira pressed a phone to his ear while another agent arrived. The girl lowered her gaze, trying to compose herself as the investigation quietly continued. Akira listened quietly with a phone to his ear. On the other end, a man spoke in a relaxed tone, unfazed by recent events. Beside a bright pool, the man rested in a chair while swimmers played behind him. Leaked information had reached rival groups, yet he showed no urgency. An ashtray sat near his hand as he continued the call. Internal interference was mentioned, but he dismissed it with confidence. Hearing that the chairman had been killed, Akira's face tightened. The emergency response meant increased responsibility and greater danger. The call ended calmly. New orders were set, marking the beginning of a far riskier mission. Akira faced the white-haired agent, while the magical girl stood between them. Rubble surrounded the trio as they discussed the chairman's disappearance and its implications. Tension sharpened across their expressions. Eliminating their enemies became the clear objective, and the decision carried no hesitation. They turned toward the broken corridor, stepping through debris. Resolve settled in as they moved toward the next phase of their plan. Elsewhere, a distorted space opened inside an abandoned building. A man near the entrance noticed the unnatural shift too late. In another room, a group observed a restrained subject, enduring a brutal procedure. Granting magic to humans demanded sacrifice, and the experiment continued, despite the risk. A woman with braided hair sat on a sofa, smoking calmly while two girls listened. Close up, her eyes hardened with resolve. She declared she would settle the matter herself, then bowed her head in brief gratitude as armed members gathered behind her. Reports followed. Production was under control. Rival groups remained obedient, and their influence had spread across regions without resistance. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. The decision had already been made. With a skull statue and candle at her side, she announced the next stage of the plan, advancing toward the final phase. A skull statue stood beside a burning candle, signaling the quiet beginning of a larger move. 1 week later, a private jet descended toward the eastern airport. On the ground, Akira and the white-haired agent waited with a small security team and black vehicles. They reviewed the assignment calmly. The chairman would arrive within the hour, and escorting him safely to headquarters became their sole priority. Routes and formations were finalized. Several operatives would board the aircraft while armored cars secured the perimeter without gaps. As engines roared and doors prepared to open, tension tightened. Once the chairman left the airport, the true operation would begin. A transport truck stood near the airport structures while security personnel adjusted their ties and prepared for arrival. Inside the mobile command unit, operators monitored live feeds of the runway. The white-haired agent confirmed that special units were positioned at 5 points around the airport. Tension rose as officials argued over authority. Police insisted on protecting the chairman, yet operational control remained contested. The white-haired agent narrowed his eyes, sensing that ordinary measures would not be enough for what was coming. Reports warned that a magical girl attack was highly possible. Armed specialists gathered behind the monitors, readying themselves for a threat beyond conventional response. A magical girl stood high above the airport structure, watching a jet cross the sky. Wind pulled at her uniform as she fixed her attention on the arriving aircraft. Closing her eyes briefly, she focused her power and vowed to stop the approaching target. Security teams gathered near the plane as Akira monitored the perimeter. Subtle tension spread among the guards as preparations reached their final stage. Elsewhere, allied magical girls assembled under a darkened sky. With weapons ready, they initiated their plan to intercept the escort. Akira followed the black-haired man onto the private plane while the guards stayed silent around them. Inside the cabin, the chairman calmly contacted his subordinates as the aircraft left the city behind. Fear spread through the crew after Akira realized the passenger was Isshin Asakura, the sixth leader of a violent organization. Reports about riots, dead civilians, and growing resistance filled Akira's thoughts during the flight. Asakura's influence continued expanding across the country, turning ruined districts into territory controlled by his men, while Akira watched carefully beside him. Heavy rain surrounded the airport, while Akira guided the quiet passenger through the aircraft entrance, beside several armed guards. Inside the cabin, Asakura calmly discussed future operations and ignored the tension spreading among the men around him. On a nearby rooftop, a horned girl carefully observed the private plane through binoculars while monitoring every movement below. After confirming Asakura's location, her group immediately prepared explosives and routes for a direct assault before the aircraft departed. Back inside the hideout, nervous younger members struggled to stay calm as the older woman reviewed their attack strategy, escape path, and emergency backup plan before the operation officially began that night. The woman realized Asakura was not traveling inside any of the armored vehicles, leaving the airport separately. A hidden cargo truck parked behind the plane became the true target, and her team quietly prepared to intercept it. Several magical fighters gathered near the containers, determined to destroy the criminal group responsible for the previous massacre. Meanwhile, Akira received orders to drive the truck toward a distant rendezvous point while remaining alert for attacks. Before the convoy reached the highway, a sudden strike hit the vehicle from above, forcing Akira and the guards into immediate combat inside the moving truck, as chaos erupted around them. Akira drove the truck beside the quiet blonde man, while the airport convoy slowly separated behind them. The blonde guard ordered Akira to switch positions and leave the area before enemy forces discovered the chairman's location. As the cargo truck departed from the runway, the guards continued monitoring nearby vehicles and possible ambush routes. During the drive, the blonde man questioned Akira about his connection to the criminal organization, while remaining suspicious of his behavior. Akira stayed focused on the road, but the growing tension inside the vehicle revealed that neither of them fully trusted the other during the dangerous mission ahead. Then, Akira admitted he joined the organization because he believed there had never been another path available for people like him. The blonde man quietly accepted the answer while tightening his grip inside the moving vehicle. Without warning, the truck windows exploded as an attacker crashed through the glass and forced the vehicle into chaos. Akira lost control for a moment, while the blonde fighter immediately counterattacked and pushed the enemy back across the seats. During the violent struggle, the attacker exposed Akira's hidden identity as an undercover investigator, destroying the fragile trust that had existed inside the convoy moments earlier. Elsewhere on the highway, another investigator calmly followed the convoy while discussing Akira's dangerous undercover assignment. Inside the truck, the guards realized Akira had secretly entered the organization to investigate the growing drug operation surrounding Asakura. The blonde fighter attacked again before Akira could fully react, forcing him backward through the damaged vehicle interior. At the same moment, magical forces struck the truck from outside, destroying the container and scattering debris across the highway. After escaping the wreckage, the horned attacker landed nearby and immediately recognized the presence of narcotics investigators among the surviving members of the convoy. A small magical girl joined the battlefield and warned the reckless fighter to stop causing unnecessary destruction around the convoy. She controlled several floating weapons with precision, forcing the attackers backward before they could surround the survivors. Akira quickly protected the girl after another strike nearly hit her during the chaotic fight beside the ruined highway. More magical fighters arrived and launched stronger attacks, turning the battle into complete disorder as debris scattered everywhere. While explosions and magic collided around them, Akira and the young girl struggled to escape the crossfire before the remaining convoy members were completely overwhelmed by the growing assault. Akira rushed into battle as magical girls surrounded the enemy. The white-haired opponent charged forward with blades, forcing everyone into a direct clash. A swift counterattack followed. Akira struck first, and appeared to gain the advantage, driving the enemy back across the battlefield. While the opponent focused on Akira, a magical girl seized the opening. Her wand crashed into the white-haired fighter's face and disrupted his momentum. The blow sent him tumbling across the ground. Dust scattered as he rolled to a stop and struggled to recover. Instead of retreating, the injured fighter grinned with excitement. The fierce exchange only fueled his desire to continue fighting Akira. Akira and a magical girl rushed forward together. Their coordinated attacks forced the white-haired fighter onto the defensive, while another ally watched for an opening. Nearby Vicky prepared a reckless move. She lifted a massive truck with magic and positioned it above the battlefield, despite the danger. Meanwhile, another magical girl calmly took aim. She focused on the enemy and prepared a finishing strike. Before the attack could land cleanly, an explosion erupted. The blast shook the area and disrupted Vicky's plan, leaving her startled. As the dust settled, Akira protected Jenna and stood ready to continue. Behind them, the white-haired fighter remained standing, showing the battle was far from over. The white-haired fighter refused to stay out of the battle. Grinning, he grabbed his blade and turned his attention towards Susui once again. Without warning, he launched himself forward. Susui noticed the sudden attack and hurried to react before the strike reached its target. A young magical girl froze as the blade swept toward her. The attack seemed certain to hit, leaving her little time to escape. At the last moment, her strange key-like item activated. The girl slipped away from danger, causing the attack to miss completely. Confusion spread across the battlefield. While the enemy struggled to understand what happened, the others quickly regrouped and prepared their next move. After the clash, Sukui and his allies discussed the situation. They suspected powerful groups were already aware of his true role and future involvement. The conversation continued as the team considered the risks. Susui admitted that recent events made him feel increasingly exposed and surrounded by hidden enemies. Elsewhere, the white-haired fighter formed a new plan. Rather than facing every opponent directly, he decided to turn his enemies against one another. Acting immediately, he fled the battlefield. A speeding car arrived, allowing him to escape while his pursuers struggled to keep up. Meanwhile, Vicky dealt with trouble of her own. Bruised and frustrated, she complained after taking another painful hit during the chaos. The white-haired fighter confronted the exhausted magical girls. Despite his injuries, he showed no fear and prepared to continue the bloodshed. Far away, a convoy arrived at a large warehouse. Important figures stepped out and quickly moved toward the secured facility. Inside, security personnel organized an evacuation. The chairman and his associates were escorted away as tensions continued to rise. While protective measures were discussed, attention shifted to a suspicious vehicle parked nearby. The discovery immediately raised concern among the guards. Their fears proved justified. A mysterious woman appeared atop the vehicle and calmly greeted Chairman Asakura, signaling that a dangerous confrontation was about to begin. The intruder's appearance shocked everyone inside the warehouse. Guards and officials immediately realized their secure location had been exposed. Gunfire erupted as the guards opened fire. Panic spread through the room while the chairman's escorts tried to protect him and retreat. The mysterious woman moved through the chaos with ease. Bodies fell behind her while surviving guards struggled to understand her overwhelming strength. Reaching her target, she calmly revealed that she knew far more than expected. The threat hanging over the chairman suddenly became impossible to ignore. Instead of backing down, the chairman remained composed. Surrounded by armed men, he answered her challenge and prepared for the dangerous confrontation ahead. The mysterious woman exposed the chairman's network. She revealed connections to powerful criminals, foreign allies, and dangerous individuals with unusual abilities. Rather than denying the accusations, the chairman listened calmly. His composure suggested he understood the scale of the conflict already unfolding. Confidence filled the room as he declared victory before the battle was decided. Certain of his position, he looked down on his opponent without hesitation. At his signal, armed men opened fire. Bullets rushed toward the woman as they attempted to overwhelm her through sheer force. The attack failed to impress her. Standing amid the chaos, she remained completely unfazed and viewed the chairman's strategy as nothing more than a dull game. Susie and his companion raced toward their destination. Both understood that stopping Miraka had become urgent before the situation worsened. During the drive, Susie reflected on recent events. Growing tension convinced him that several hidden conflicts were finally reaching their climax. Meanwhile, the magical girls sought answers about Santa Caramello. Their search led them toward memories from the past, and clues about the true goal behind the unfolding struggle.